Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you very much, Eric, for the invitation to participate in the EOTEC DevNet. It is really a pleasure to be here with you and to share some of the ideas or some of the information, some of my experiences in drought monitoring. This information comes from CIIFEN. Here it is Pierre Maquilon. He is one of the major developers of the things that have been done in the Western South America. And I've been a consultant for CIIFEN to guide them in the development of the national drought monitors and the regional drought monitors, and also join CIIFEN to a vision, to a shared vision to have America's drought monitor in the very near future. I will explain that a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Well, the contents of the presentation is directly related to the national drought monitors from the Western South America, OSA, Oeste de Sudamérica, in the acronym in Spanish, and also the OSA regional drought monitor and the improvements that have been in place very recently, last year and on the beginning of this year. Next slide, please. The national OSA monitors. Go on. Well, what are these national drought monitors? These drought monitors have been developed since 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and they are improving. They use the same methodology that the US, Canada, and Mexico had since part of the North American drought monitor. If you remember from the story how the monitoring of drought began, it began in the 1996, 1997 in the National Drought Mitigation Center in Nebraska. A guy, the director at that time, Donald Wilhite, began with the monitoring in the US, the drought monitoring. And it was because of a request of the US Department of Agriculture, because they had many issues, and they appointed the National Drought Mitigation Center to develop a tool to address monitoring and to develop a strategy how to cope with drought. So that started at that time. Since the NAFTA, the North American Development Agreement, in 2003, Mexico and Canada, as part of the treaty, they began to work together with NOAA to develop the national drought monitors. So since that time, 2003, Canada and Mexico joined the US in drought monitor, and they developed together the North American drought monitor. So Mexico, Canada, and the US have the same basis, a complex monitoring, because it is been using, the monitoring uses several indicators. It is a combined drought indicator, and this has been recorded in the information that the IDMP from WMO, the Integrated Drought Management Program of WMO started, and there have been many reports, many papers, many sessions that have been taking place since then. So with that in mind, we assessed CIIFEN to develop, with the help of the funding of Euroclima Plus, Droughts and Floods, Andes 2019-2023, the development of the monitors for Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. So these monitors were developed through, their own Met services in those 6 countries. So we developed with the same methodology. we started from scratch, as we did in Mexico, as we did in Canada, as we did in the US. We started with 5 indicators, combined indicators, to develop the integrated drought monitoring index. We use precipitation, temperature, soil humidity, vegetation health, precipitation temperature. So these are the indicators that we use to develop the monthly monitoring system at the national level. According to the methodology of the US, Canada, and Mexico, I also assess the Brazilian government in the Northeast, and now it is the Brazilian government that issues the ANA, the National Water Authority, who develops the drought monitor for the whole country of Brazil, in the same way as we are doing right now for these 6 countries. So most of South America uses the same monitoring system. We use, in CIIFEN, we develop the automatization of the process, but it has been improved since 2019, when this began. Next slide, please. We use the same intensity classification on drought as the North American drought monitor, as the Brazilian monitor, and also the National Drought Mitigation Center worked very closely with some countries of Northern Africa and Southern Africa to develop the same system, the same way of monitoring things, using satellite imagery because and global databases, because most of the countries do not have ground data, long registers of short, and they do have some information scattered around the countries, and they don't have much information from ground, from meteorological stations or hydrometeorological stations. So in the same way, we proceeded with the 6 Andean countries in South America, and the result was to have a map, 3 types of results of outputs, one text, one TIFF archives, and PNG archive. Next slide, please. This is the way that the data are being recorded from the 5 indicators, the initial 6 indicators that we are using. Next slide, please. This is the initial information that comes from the analysis of the model that has been developed in CIIFEN. You can see these squares that are according to the intensity. You can see what kind of impact of drought is being taking place in these different indicators. They are 5 kilometers of the pixel that are being recorded with the information of satellite imagery. Next slide, please. This is the adapted, the contour of those boxes, of those pixels, according to the intensity of the scale of the intensity of drought that is being used for the 6 Andean countries, but also being used in Brazil, Northern Africa, Southern Africa, and in the North American Drought Monitor. So that's the reason why we have the vision to have a joint drought monitor for the whole continent using the same methodology, so that you can analyze and interpret the information. You can see that this is being taking place, how the impact of monitor, how the impact of the drought is affecting one place and another, and you can make comparisons among them. Next slide, please. This is the monitor of Colombia that you saw. We have the same things for all the Andean countries, for the 6 Andean countries. This is an ensemble. You can see this. You can see the map. The map is the ensemble of the national drought monitors. So we are using the information from the 6 meteorological services in the western part of South America. And also we are matching the information from Brazil. And you can see how the drought is impacting 2 or 3 countries at the same time with the same intensity. Last year was very intense in Brazil, the impact of the drought, and the Amazonas River in some places dried up completely. And also that happened in some places in South America, in the western part of South America. Again, this regional monitor is being issued every month, as the national monitors do, because as in the case of the North American Drought Monitor, which is an ensemble of the monitor of the Canada, US, and Mexico, we use the same approach here to get the regional Western South American Drought Monitor. So we also do have a bulletin that has information not only about the situation, the status of the drought in this area, but also we have information about the impacts that have been recorded in these 6 countries in agriculture, in hydrology, in water resources, and disaster risk reduction. You can find there the bulletins, and you can find there the regional monitor. Again, most of the information from the region, except for Chile, use satellite global databases because of the lack of long registers of information of the ground in these different countries. We need to find ground stations with more than 30 years of data, with no more than 20% of data not available. And also the information that is been coming from the satellite imagery or the global databases, they are being calibrated with the information from the ground in Chile, and we are expanding that to the other countries. Right now, we are working with Ecuador and Bolivia, which has given us some ground truthing with the information they do have. Next slide, please. This is the example of one of the things, of the novelties, of the innovation that we've been coming. This comes from Mexico's experience. Mexico has a persistence drought monitor. And this persistence gives us an idea how has the drought monitor behaved, its evolution 12 months, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months ago, and the present situation of the drought. With that information, we can forecast, quote to quote, we can outlook how is to be developing in the near future the drought, because since the drought is a slow motion process, because it has many different parts of indicators which record not only precipitation but also temperature, but also health of the vegetation, humidity of the soil, and evapotranspiration. The mixture of these 5 indicators give us the sense of the meteorological drought, the agricultural drought, the hydrological drought. So we can have a more wide view of how the indicators perform together jointly. We have initially to have the same weight for every indicator, but now we are having some statistical analysis to identify for each country which indicator weights more, has more impact, using principal component analysis that we're using to identify which indicator has more weight than others. But again, returning to the persistence map that you have on the screen, you can see clearly how you can see Bolivia, for example, how the part of the Amazonas part of Bolivia has behaved 12 months ago, and now the drought is disappearing. It is disappearing. So we can quote to quote predict, outlook in the future. How would be the impact of drought in that country, in that part of Bolivia? And that also has happened with the other 6 Andean countries. Unfortunately, Brazil does not have the information for these time lags. But we are working with Brazil. We have CIIFEN has been establishing a memorandum of understanding with ANA of Brazil in order to join forces and to develop the same things. And also, we are looking forward to work with the Climate Regional Center in South America, which is being hosted by the Argentinian Meteorological Service, to have the whole continent, the South American part of the continent of the Americas, to have with the same monitoring. If you consider that North America uses the same methodology, if you consider in the near future that South America will use the same information and use the same methodology to address, to analyze drought, there will be only some small gaps in Central America, which we're trying to address with another project. Next slide, please. The monitors, the national, since we are making an ensemble of the drought monitoring of the nations, of these 6 nations, the idea is to improve those national monitors to become more precise, to become more extended. If you know, the Mexican drought monitor uses 11 indicators for the compound indicator. Canada uses 7 indicators, but the US is now uses more than 24 indicators, and they are working to increase them to 33, according to the information that I have from my friends from NOAA. So they are using more indicators in order to improve the monitoring. So they're saying we have the same vision with CIIFEN in South America to improve that. Next slide, please. So initially, some of the new indicators that we are developing is the hydrological index, SDI, the Nalvantis methodology that it is being used in Mexico, in the Mexican drought monitor, is being implemented right now in the 6 Andean countries. And also the idea is to have a calibration module. As I was saying, only Chile uses ground data. Right now, CIIFEN has been working with Ecuador and Bolivia to use the same methodology to calibrate the data, the satellite data and the global databases to improve the resolution of the monitor. And also, we are exploring with the principal component analysis, the weight of the different indicators for the different nations, but also for different regions, and also we have identified differences in the weight of the different indicators according to the season. So we are starting to identify the weight of the different indicators, of the 6 indicators that we are using for the six nations and for the regional monitor. In the case of Chile, we haven't developed in the past for the Rapa Nui Island the drought monitor. Right now it is it's been developed under development, as well as for the Galapagos in Ecuador. We are trying to do a downscaling for small territories less than 25 kilometers square, and also we are exploring using other soil moisture sources, because we identified that some of them do not clearly reflect what's going on the ground. And again, as in the US, which has a very important regional impact, drought impact reporter, which is on the web page and gathers information from many different sources. We are developing the same thing for the western part of South America in CIIFEN. And one of the things that we identified that was very important is to have strategic plans. A strategic plan that guides the Met services in the countries to identify the priorities, to identify the needs, and to identify how to make some alliances inside the country to improve the monitor. We found out that initially the drought was not considered a meteorological meteorological phenomena to be analyzed in a standard way as part of the program of the different Met services. They made the analysis scattered, not periodically, only when it happens, and so forth. And we convinced many of the Met services that this should be developed, analyzed on a standard basis, on a daily basis. And so that's the reason why we developed with Bolivia and Chile initially strategic plans to guide as a roadmap for those Met services how to improve the drought monitoring, how to approach all the sectors like agriculture, like disaster reduction, like water resources, like energy as well, like health, so that we can lure those sectors and they begin to look at the drought monitor and to find some products and services that can develop and use for them specifically, so that it will guide the Met services to improve the way they monitor drought. Next slide, please. This is the hydrological index module using the Nalvantis methodology. We have implemented that in Ecuador. We use, unfortunately, as precipitation and temperature, there are not many hydromet stations on the ground that has long periods of record. That's why we are using GeoGLOS version 2 data and trying to use some ground truthing with the information from the Met services. Next slide, please. This is the example of Ecuador, where you can see again with the time lag of 12 months, 6 months, 3 months, and the present situation of the drought, the hydrological drought, and you can see the evolution. And that information again, it is available on the web. You can see the link on that. Next slide, please. So the improvement of the national monitors, in this case, in this particular case for Ecuador, the drought monitor 2.0, we use the SDI, the hydrological index. We calibrate with the ground data and also use principal component analysis to develop which of the different 5 indicators, now 6 indicators, weights more in the decision of how to map, to identify what's going on the ground in terms of drought. So these are some of the things that we are developing in CIIFEN. Next slide. And this is some of the layers that we are using to identify the indices, the individual indices, how we weight them, and so forth. And we're using 715 stations, virtual stations, which have been developed for Ecuador using the 6 indices. And we make some interpolations in order to identify a more downscale information on drought. Next slide, please. This is the initial version used before it was 2.0. And next slide, please. You can see how this behaves with using for the 9-month period the information of the improved monitoring in Ecuador. Next slide, please. You can see the difference between these 3 maps. And this is the reason why we are improving in a continuous way the monitors in this. We're starting with Ecuador and Bolivia, but we will work with the other monitors as well. So we can have a more precise information related to drought. Next slide. The preliminary findings of the application of this 2.0 monitor is that more stations didn't improve much the performance of the monitor. neither including the hierarchical index. The interpolation that we're using in the calculation of the indices of the monitor introduces some significant biases, and adjusting the weights will also counterperform that. Correcting satellite databases using single time period does not show significant difference, in particular with SPI. We are still analyzing the outputs in more detail in order to identify how to improve this 2.0 Ecuador monitor. So the idea, next slide please, the idea is to have the same route for the other countries. And again, the integration of these products will be also done for the other 5 monitors. And again, it will be shown in the regional drought monitor for Western South American countries. The cooperation with ANA Brazil and with the Climate Regional Center of Southern South America in Argentina, it is up to work together, and the experiences that we're having in Western part, we can share with the other 2 areas, with Brazil and with the CIIFEN institution, so that they can take advantage of the findings that we have. And our vision, we are still convincing them to have, as I told you, to have a united drought monitor for the whole South America. And in the very near future, provide support to the Central American countries to do the same. Taking advantage of the benefits of this, and also from the disadvantages that we found, and the hurdles that we have also had in the implementation of monitoring. And again, we will keep on working with the strategic plans, because we found out that this is the best way to begin to mainstream the concept of drought as a meteorological phenomena that needs to be analyzed on a daily basis, on a standard basis, and not as a specific process that has to be developed only when it is being requested by the governments, when this happens. So the idea is to have it on a daily basis, analysis on a daily basis, information for the different institutions, for agriculture, for energy, for water resources, for disaster reduction. So the idea is to align this information as Mexico has. Mexico has PRONACOSE, the national program against drought, on which many institutions work together. They do have a plan for each of the basins, and they do have some mitigation measures, prevention measures against drought. So the idea is to go in that direction first in the Western South America, and then expand it to the other countries of South America. One thing that it is really important for you to know is that Brazil is having the same process as Mexico had in the past, developing plans for the basins, drought mitigation and preventions, drought plans for the different regions, particularly from the Northeast, which has been hit by drought since a very long time ago, and also in the central part in Sao Paulo as well. So this is the things that have been worked in CIIFEN in South America. I don't want to present what has been going on in the other part with the regional climate center in Argentina, because they are working in different ways, but they are not using a combined drought index as we are using here in this part of the continent. They are approaching, but now they have realized that it is important to work together, and we have made some talkings to them in order to sign an agreement with them so that we can work together and share experiences. Next slide, I think that was the last one. So again, I would like to thank CIIFEN for letting me use the presentation that has been expressed in a meeting in January in Ecuador, so that we can show to you what it has been going on since 2021 in that part of the continent, and that it is now expanding to the rest of the continent in Central America and the eastern part of South America. Over. Thank you.